Hello, my name is Jay Collier from the Photography Workshop Co. here in Australia. Today I'm going to do a quick presentation before I go out and do a field test as a follow-up video on a new product from Benro. Now, over the years as a professional wildlife photographer, I've struggled with the choice of which gimbal head to use for my super telephoto lenses, mainly due to bulk and travel size. Quite often I'm on and off light aircraft in and out of remote locations, particularly throughout Africa, and even most recently through Antarctica, where you do have weight restrictions. Quite often that is 15 to 20 kilos if you are using light aircraft, particularly when you are hosting guests like I do on photographic tours around the world. Now for me, the choice of a gimbal has to be performance versus packability versus weight. Up until recently, I've been using what would be known as the industry standard when it came to stabilized gimbals for super tele, which are the Wembley brand of gimbal heads. Now the Wembley has served me well. Unfortunately, it's just too heavy, and being that today's mirrorless technology has significantly reduced the weight in not only the camera bodies but also the lenses, the requirements for such heavyweight fluid gimbals has gone out the window. So I did downsize from this to one of the Orion Tilt 2s, which is, again, you'll see probably a lot smaller, a little bit easier to pack. So what you'll see is with the Wembley and also with the Orion 2, the issue is these don't pack down any smaller than what you see. So you're quite often faced with having to put this either in checked luggage wrapped with your clothes, which does add some hefty weight. Also, anything that could be damaged in your bag, you really want to wrap these up quite well. Now the Orion did serve me probably fairly well for the last 4 to 5 years, where I replaced the original Wembley. It was just too big, too bulky and too heavy. But again, these don't pack down small. So if I am out in the field using my Shimoda Action X series bag, they do have the additional roll top, so you can fit extra gear in there. But I'm finding, again, it's just too big and bulky, that if I do have filters or any other sensitive equipment in there, my constant worry is that with hard edges on this thing, that you're going to break a bit of your gear. Now, what entered the market was, I haven't unboxed this at all yet, new from Benro, which is the Benro GH2F, which is a folding gimbal. Now this one I'm going to get out and do a field test photographing some birds at a local wetland very soon as a follow-up video to this. But today I just wanted to take you through some of the main features that this offers that significantly changes the game when it comes to using gimbal heads for super tele lenses. So stay tuned and I'll take you through a little bit more about this bad boy. So the Benro GH2F folding gimbal head is what I'm going to talk to you about today. So a lot of what I'll talk about is just my initial thoughts on the design, the packability, and the fact that this folds up small enough that it will actually fit inside one of the sections of the backpack, or it comes with its own case as well, which will be quite smaller and a hell of a lot lighter than what we're getting currently out of my current setup. So today as well, I'm showing this on the Benro Rhino series of carbon fibre tripod. Now, out of the Rhino, I choose between two different tripods generally when I'm out in the field. And that is the choice between having one with a center column, like you see here on the Rhino, versus using the Tortoise. So the Benro Tortoise, which is exactly the same, packs down a little smaller for the fact that it doesn't have a center column. So if you are after very low ground shots, I would favour the Tortoise for that reason. Now, with the Benro Rhino that you see here, the center column can be removed and inverted, so you can get the camera down to ground level. So I have found on some expeditions where I am limited to which tripod to take, I have been choosing the Rhino for that reason. Now, another great feature with the Rhino is the leg that has the rubberized stem unscrews, and you can connect that to the center column to form a monopod. So if you are restricted on size and weight, again, the practicability of taking a tripod that also has a built-in monopod available, along with products like this, which I'll have out for you in a moment, really helps you pack down smaller and lighter and get them into smaller size expedition backpacks, particularly if you're hiking or shooting on foot, where every single kilo, I guarantee you, you'll feel by the end of the day. Alright, let's see what comes in the box. So we'll open it up. It's the first time I've seen this product physically in the flesh. So here we go.
So a bunch of paraphernalia, a few accessories, strap there, instruction manual. Cool, it comes in a little case. I mean, this is the sort of thing that can quite easily fit in a backpack, camera bag, the top of the camera bag, versus lugging around the size of a full-size gimbal on its own. So if I was to think about the size of this product in comparison to having to lug an uncollapsed like the Wembley, for example, it already takes up a much smaller footprint. But if I was to think of the actual product outside of the case, quite literally will fit in the inside of a camera backpack. So inside, that's the unit itself, right here. So as you'll see, that's the whole size of the gimbal itself, nice and compact. Now with the additional parts, doesn't take up a whole lot of space. Then you've got the little slide plate as well that will lock onto your lens. Okay, so if we unpack this and just put the case aside for the moment, all the parts collapse down, will easily fit into quite a small space in your camera bag. So here you can just see how much bulk the old Wembley, my old setup, has in comparison to using the new Benro gimbal here. Now, packability, this will fit into the backpack with lenses and other smaller items. So a secondary great feature about how this new setup will work is the fact that the bottom bracket can be attached separately, so you can use it as a side mount, which I'll have set up for you in a moment just to show you the difference. So in general, the difference between a side mount is that the lens obviously attaches sideways rather than using the bottom bracket to support the lens. So with this one's just a simple case of pushing in the button, sliding the bracket across, that flips open and locks. There is no movement, very solid, which is what we want. We don't want any rickety movement and motion. So with this one, it'll basically just attach to the top of this one here. Okay, now the second part is just a simple case of unlocking this latch here. This will flip down, lock into place, and you've got your side bracket. So this one will just sit on top of the tripod and mount sideways. Alternatively, I'll just get this out of the road. I won't be using that product again by the look of it. I'm already in love with this thing and I haven't even used it. Okay, so to attach the bottom bracket, all we need to do is just loosen this off, spin this around, lock that down, then you'll see the whole head itself as follows. Now that will screw on and will balance the whole camera unit, which once I've got it up on the tripod and the camera and lens attached, you'll see exactly. But that's the setup in a T. So very small, very compact, and again you can remove the sidearm and just have that as a side mount, which is very cool. All solid alloy, nice fluid smooth gears. But let's get a camera and some weight onto this and see how it fares as a support gimbal for a Super Tele lens. Before I set up the new Benro setup, I'm just going to go through why would you use a gimbal. So you'll see here with my current setup with the Orion Tilt 2, it's on a bottom bracket system, so there is no side mount option, which means there's no avoiding getting away from this bottom bracket. You can't just use the single stem. Wembley do make a product on the market which is their side mount version, but you'll generally find the fluidity, there is more balance and support when you do have that bottom bracket, which I'm very excited to have both options in the Benro. This design itself is extremely unique for the fact that it does pack down small, and it's not too hard to be able to just remove the whole thing if I am walking between locations and don't want the bulk on the tripod attached and wobbling around on the side of my camera bag. So I definitely will find that this setup, I'm going to favour it fairly quickly, without a doubt. So again, I'm going to get this one set up, show you the difference between having the bottom bracket versus the side mount, and just touch on a few points about how it differs in performance when you're using it as side mount or with the bottom bracket. Okay, now we're all set up with the Benro. So you'll see at the top here, you've got a little tension screw, and another one on the side here for your pan and tilt.
So much like any other gimbal, it's nice and fluid. It's a really nice resistance there. So how it will work is the plate itself here, you'll just slide forwards and back until you counterbalance your lens. So wherever you let go, it will counterbalance. There is a really nice amount of fluid grab, so to speak, inside the head, which makes it really nice and smooth. So that tension, you obviously adjust just by tightening this. If you want it a little firmer, or if you want it to completely lock, it won't move at all. Now, much like the pan, as well as the tilt adjustment, you can set that resistance based on how quickly you want that to pan. I mean, that is really nice and smooth. So far, very excited to get this one out in the field. So the foot on the bottom of the lens is an archetype plate, which is very widely used across the photographic industry. So it's just a simple case of just slotting the foot inside the cradle, and then on the right hand side here, this will close the clamp, which will make that nice and secure. Now, if you are using this in the current setup, you've got the two axes. You've got the pan and also the tilt. And then if you correct your vertical and horizontal, it's just a case of unlocking the lens and spinning the whole camera inside the collar unit. Now, if you wanted a smaller and a lighter weight option when traveling, the next option you've got is using this as a side mount. So instead, you would simply release the whole camera. Just pop that down here out of the road. Then this unit here, you will just unlock the bottom bracket, remove that entirely. Then when you lock the tilt axis, you can side mount the camera. So it's just a case of locking the collar on your lens, popping the foot into the cradle, locking that down, and again you will just find the counterbalance. It's just a case of dragging the mount forwards and backwards till it counterbalances. Now you see the ability of the actual unit changes because you're just dealing with one axis here for your tilt, and then the pan lock, you're still using the same one here. But by losing that bottom bracket, you're using a much smaller unit, which once you pack this down and take it off, you can quickly collapse that down, fold it up into a very small platform and very light. Now I find using this, you've got the adjustment right here at the thumb to control your tension. So the camera itself, again, between vertical and horizontal is a case of spinning it inside the collar. But it gives you a smaller base to work with, particularly if you're backpacking or hiking on foot for a long day. So using that side mount option versus using the bracket, what you'll generally find is it's just a little bit more stable and it's more fluid and cleaner in a way to use with that bottom support bracket. I find I personally prefer it, but being that I haven't used this yet, I'm going to take this out in the field over the next few days and really put it through its paces to see how it performs photographing some birds. What you'll see here is in the side mount option, it really is a small footprint. It's very small and compact to carry and move from A to B and to set up and pack down, to take up literally the space of one lens in a backpack versus the old Wembley, which takes up pretty much the whole bottom of my camera bag, or the whole top section of my camera bag, which makes it very top heavy. It makes the load wobble around. Not a fan of this anymore now that this has come along. Now what you'll see in this side mount option when attached to tripod legs. Now the tripod that I prefer in the field for most wildlife when I'm on foot, in particular, is this one here, which is the Benro Rhino carbon fibre tripod. Now why I reach for this one is that quite often you'll be out in the field moving from location to location or hiking on foot, where at one point you can have everything leveled off, the camera at eye height at a comfortable position, then you move a couple of meters, now you're on sloping ground where you need to make a quick height adjustment with your tripod. Now rather than messing around with three legs, I'll just use the center column to make a quick adjustment, which basically gets you back to level. I'd rather be shooting at all times with my head straight than having the camera at a lower angle. Because what inherently will happen as soon as you're at a low angle, your head tilts and that throws out your equilibrium. So what will actually happen is you quite often will see your horizon start to slope for the sheer fact that your head is on an angle. So something happens in your brain which causes that to be thrown So I'll generally find I'll always make that quick adjustment using that center column to get to eye height to keep your head straight. So now I've got all of that ability to be able to shoot, pan and tilt very, very, very quickly in the field. Now as far as pack down is concerned, just a quick case of dropping the center column. The tripod legs are easy to collapse up. Again, it's just holding onto your camera, releasing it from the dovetail clip. So moving on, it's not unfeasible to actually leave the head attached to the tripod. Just a simple case of just unlocking it, loading it over. That takes up a fairly small footprint when attached, and have that strapped to the side of your camera bag. Doesn't add too much weight, doesn't end up making things wobble around. Alternatively, it's just a case of unlocking the whole head, unscrewing the whole unit, and packing that away in one tiny, tiny little spot in your camera bag. Very, very compact, very lightweight, very practical. The packability, the performance, the build quality, there is literally nothing, until I get this outdoors, mind you, and start using it in the field, that I can mark it down on. It is literally, to me right now, it's looking like the perfect solution for the issue that I've had for so long with packability, portability, size and performance of a gimbal when shooting wildlife using long super telephoto lenses. So this is my Shimoda Action X50 bag, just to show you that once you pack this down, fold the unit away, it's quite literally going to take up very, very little room in your camera bag. Even if you're using that bottom bracket as well, I mean that's tucking away into a space that you would fit a small lens, versus what I was generally doing was looking at the size of the Wembley. The Wembley itself just takes up that whole area of the bag. The alternative was that I would have to place this in the top section of the bag, which just threw the balance out in the backpack, made it really top heavy on the shoulders, and just unnecessary to cart this thing around for another day in the field. So this one is going to retire now. I generally don't see a point for this at all anymore. And yeah, definitely welcome the new Benro folding gimbal into the fold. One final feature that I will mention here on the Benro Rhino carbon fibre tripod is out of the three legs, you have one that has a rubberized grip around the outside. Now this one unscrews and converts into a monopod. So this part here, you've either got the option of using that as a low level monopod, so if you are seated or sitting in a blind or a hide and you don't need as much height. Alternatively, through the bottom of the center column, you just unscrew the little weight hook in the bottom, take that out, loosen the center column, pull it all the way out, then this will screw together to form a larger full-size monopod, and then you've got the choice then of attaching the gimbal head to the top of that as well, or a standard ball head or any standard archetype quick release. So you've got another opportunity. Now, where I quite often use monopods is if I'm in Africa as an example. If I'm shooting from a vehicle, then I generally won't be shooting on a tripod. I just use a beanbag slumped on the side of the car. Where a monopod can really come into play is I don't like using monopods sitting in a car, because what you'll find is once the lens is on there, you're stuck on an axis, and to be able to move from one side of the vehicle to another, you're lumping a great big lens around on top of the monopod, which becomes quite restrictive. Where I do use these is if you get elephants or any other animals coming up close to the side of the car where it's not safe to leave the vehicle, I will actually pop the whole camera using my phone and a Wi-Fi connected app. I can see what the camera is seeing and dump that down over the side of the vehicle to the floor to shoot ground level images of animals that you otherwise can't get out of the vehicle for. So the ability to have this as part of one tripod system matched with the gimbal head as an outdoor wildlife photographer's dream, this simply cannot be beat. So I hope you've enjoyed the rundown of the new Benro products and what they can do for wildlife photographers like myself. For those wanting to pick up any Benro products, be sure to go over to the Australian distributor's website, which is Maxum, maxum.com.au, maxum.com.au, where you can use our ambassador code PC10 to save 10% off any online purchase directly from the Australian distributor. Now that's not limited to just Benro products. It is also Shimoda, Haida, Samyang, a bunch of products that Maxim Australia distribute here, saving 10% off any purchase online by using our ambassador code again, which is PC10 at Maxim, MAXXUM, maxim.com.au. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Stay tuned. I will have a video coming up using this out in the field, as I've already mentioned. So any comments, questions, leave them below and I'll be sure to get back to you on those. But until then, I've been Jay Collier from the Photography Workshop Co. and thanks so much for your time and attention, and I'll see you again next time. Cheers.